finally here, and it's the small matter of 40,000 Mackems to talk about. And Sky Sports on Sunday, welcome to the first preview show of 23-24. This is the Blue Monday podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, resplendent in orange. Ben, this is our 9th season, nearing our 700th episode. And as always, we discuss the Ipswich Town, up or down since 2015. I'm Richard Woodward, and this is the Prematch Show brought to you in partnership yet again with our great friends at the Greyhound Pub in Ipswich. And we're every week to give you the inside track on Town's weekend opponents. This week, as Ben said, it's Sunderland, and we're going to talk all about it. This is kind of these weird situations, Ben, where two hosts on the same pod, but so we're going to go back and forth, aren't we? But have you got the kind of new year starting school kind of vibes, or are you a little bit? It's Thursday. We've got a bit of a wait, haven't we, with Sunday?
Well, I'll be fully on Sheffield Wednesday and Southampton.
You've got a triple header, haven't you, this weekend?
Tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not at the game, but I watch it on my channel. To be honest, I'll wibble my way through tomorrow. I might do some transfer stuff. And then once I see players walking out onto a pitch again, we'll know it's all beginning again. And I'm sure there'll be some lovely stories. By the way, everybody, do say hello in the chat. Do hit the thumbs up button. There's lots of good stuff coming in the chat as well. We'll try and intersperse that, Rich, as we go. And we'll do sort of full on questions. But can I dive straight in before we get to Sunderland? Ashley's not the only person to comment on this. Norwood to Oldham, what's that all about? Norwood move is a strange one. Just quickly, Rich, give me your take. James Norwood, I saw, in that huge game, Barnsley-Sheffield Wednesday, which kind of turned the season a little bit in our favour, playing for Barnsley and scoring right at the top end of League One. He's gone to Oldham.
Yeah, and with 2 days left before the season starts as well? I mean, I'm not really sure what's going on there. I was pretty certain that he was well liked at Barnsley and made a contribution. I think he had a year left. Apologies for my ignorance, but I don't know. Are Oldham National League? They're not League Two yet?
Yeah, so Oldham went out of League Two a couple of years ago. They had that dreadful, I don't want to say his nationality in case I get the wrong nationality, but they had a dreadful owner. And do you remember the fans protesting on the pitch all the while? And I don't want to go off on my spiel. My first ever, not my first ever game, but the first ever goal I saw at Portman Road was scored by Oldham as they were getting promoted to the top division as well. So yeah, I don't really know why Norwood's dropped that. He's been linked with Wrexham, hadn't he, as well? Which
seems obvious. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of money sloshing around the National League, and maybe that's a factor there. But it's definitely a changing of the guard at Barnsley, isn't it? Obviously Duff's left and gone to Swansea, and ownership issues off the field there as well. So yeah, not really sure what's going on at Barnsley, but yeah, I mean, Norwood continues his career, doesn't he? It's just a strange one.
Yeah, he'll probably score a load of goals, won't he? Did you want to talk, Rich, about, and I don't want to use the word disappointing, the week's not over. And remember, in terms of registering transfers, we play on Sunday. So we're actually talking midday on Saturday, not midday on Friday. Not that you're likely going to register a player on Saturday and have them involved on Sunday. But quiet week. I don't know if we had ideas above our station when we've seen Austin Trusty go to the Premier League for what Sheffield United are calling a sizable fee. And Luke McNally, he would have been so good, wouldn't he? Has that gone through to Stoke?
Yeah, it was confirmed on Wednesday, wasn't it?
Oh, Christ. So what's your take on this? I don't want to use the word disappointing because the transfer window has another few weeks to go. But what's your sort of take on transfers and whatnot?
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because on the one hand, our budget clearly allows us to shop with a stature currently than we are. I know there's a lot of, championship clubs in for these types of players, but we need to remember that we've literally just come out of League One we're relying a lot of the reputation of McKenna to attract players, which is working in our favour a little bit. But I guess there's the positive that we are shopping and looking at really progressive players, Ben. But are we setting our targets too high? Are we being a bit unimaginative, perhaps? A lot of teams, including Sunderland, who we'll talk about later, are shopping in the kind of European market, and we haven't really done that. But there's a lot of players linked who are moving on elsewhere, and it's frustrating, isn't it? But as you say, a long old time to go, and the rumours continue. Do you want to talk to us about Axel? He was linked today, wasn't he?
I remember trying to get an Axel F chant going for Jonas Axeldal at Ewood Park in Bradford, and then someone will tell me in the chat, I think it was Lee Carsley, scored after about 10 seconds or something in the game. We shut up then.
Damn the score, yeah.
So Axel Tuanzebe, I think he's someone will correct me in the comments, I think he's a free agent, but my memory of Axel Tuanzebe is when Aston Villa went up, they obviously had Tammy Abraham and Tyrone Mings on loan, but Mings was the left-sided centre-back, Tuanzebe was the right-sided centre-back, and you're kind of thinking, he's a player, but it's one of those where, Rich, they get trapped in, they're at this elite club, and I've played a few kind of cup games and stuff in Man United. Someone will give us the numbers in the chat. Not quite good enough there, and then a loan doesn't kick off, but then Manchester United will probably want 8-10 million quid for someone to sign him, so he goes on loan over and over again. A bit of a high-level Matthew Pennington situation, and in the end,
I was thinking Everton players actually. Yeah, exactly right.
You end up at Shrewsbury, but good player. I think Craig was sort of talking about it more wants to be a left-sided centre-back, but I like him. But again, someone could quite easily say, yeah, Ben, you're talking about the 2018-19 season. It's a long time ago, isn't it? So that's my take on him. I liked him a lot then, but what do you think?
It's another one where you kind of think, are we going to be is he in our budget, is there going to be higher echelon teams looking at him? I think, obviously this is inaccurate and with a pinch of salt, so apologies if I've got this wrong, but his wages are pretty chunky as well. 50k has been mentioned and stuff like that. That's big fry for us. So,
well, Rich, I'll rephrase what I said then. That's not Man United not wanting to get shot of him. That's him not wanting to get shot of his contract.
No, exactly right. And you can't blame him for that either.
No, God, no, yeah.
So I agree with you that if we're gonna go all out, and I was going to use a very unfortunate word, if we're going to chuck a load of the budget at a player, I'd rather they are a player that we've got a definite vacancy to fill. And right side feels like Wolfen's got that locked down. So I'd want a left-sided centre-back if we're going to spend the big bucks.
Yeah, and I mean, we can talk about it. Do you know, the funny thing, and I don't think it's come up on the podcast, is Kieran McKenna's a clever fella, and he did start with a 3 at the back, and no one's mentioned it in terms of an actual. I know we've mentioned, a player coming out from fullback into midfield or whatever to make it a kind of nominal 3, squidging over or whatever, but. You never know what a third centre back could actually do to the strategy. Guys, keep the comments going. Jonathan, I think he's been a free agent for a while, so not sure what that tournament's a fair. Can't argue with that. David,
he's
right,
back.
we're gonna count these this year.
Love you, David.
One of our kindest subscribers there, David. Thank you so much. €5 on the super. Going to Leicester, apparently. Okay, maybe he is. And
this is what happens at the moment. Every time we're linked with a player, I think Raksaki's off to Leicester as well, isn't he? So
he's not, is he?
I think so. Yeah, but we've got Hutchinson, haven't we? So
you said Leicester are giving you Newcastle, Mike Ashley, Rafa Benitez vibes, just sweeping up all the players, everybody doing what Rangers and Celtic do in the Scottish leagues, just hoover everything up, yeah. And Livramento looks like he's going from Southampton to. Although the Saints fans I've talked to have said Chelsea get a massive portion of the because of a sell-on fee. So I was just going to say we might see them and Leeds as well hoovering everybody up. I think they're talking about Raksaki in the chat. Excuse me, rather than Tuanzebe. But yeah, do you want to get into Sunderland then, Rich?
Yeah, what a great game to start the new season back in the Championship. It's one of these ones, Ben, where we're kind of there's a lot of similarities between the club's trajectories. We're kind of like a year on delay, which bodes well because obviously last time out Sunderland finished 6th and got into the playoffs, lost ultimately a really fascinating away leg at Luton. Were you at that game?
I was there, yeah.
It just felt like maybe a little bit of inexperience, a lack of physicality probably just ran out on Sunderland.
Rich, do you know what it felt like? It felt like Brentford in 2014-15, where they got to the playoffs 3 years before they were supposed to get to the playoffs.
Right, okay.
Do you know what I mean? It was like they're on a good trajectory up, but they weren't ready. And I'm sure you're going to point out Dan Neil and a fullback played. Danny Bart and Dan Ballard weren't around, and Luton just went, okay, we are going to beat you up tonight. But sorry, continue.
No, I remember watching that game, and it reminded me of us against Sheffield United, us against Bolton in the playoffs before we made success of it. But a lot to like about Sunderland, a massive club, big stadium. It's going to be a hell of an atmosphere and an occasion on Sunday, and lots of these weird kind of links between the clubs. Obviously, a lot of ex-players. It's a weird, well-trodden path, Sunderland and Ipswich. Mikey did.
That doesn't feel right, does it?
It does. Get on the plane, get on the coach. Mikey did an excellent combined 11 there, and we've still got loads of leftover players that could have got into that team as well that you care to mention as well. So I really like that, and Mogger in charge there as well.
Can I just question you straight away, Richard? A more beloved manager of another team anywhere in the division? Surely he's the most, isn't he?
And I think there's a sliding doors moment, that Sheffield Wednesday game where he's caretaker manager 2002, I think we beat them or something, or maybe we lose to them. And I think you kind of think if Mogger had got the job after Burley, we might have had a totally different history. And it just felt like a little bit too soon, didn't it? But totally agree that a lot of affection for Mogger, obviously a club legend and scored at Wembley and all that. And to be fair to him, I think he was probably a bit of a surprise appointment at Sunderland when Alex Neil went to Stoke. Did a fantastic job, got them playing a really attacking style. Obviously, we know he likes to play possession style, but we'll talk more about the kind of personal and the way they attack. But there was question marks about him in the summer, weren't there, Ben, after they lost in the playoffs?
Rich, not even in the summer. The day, I don't know where it came from, whether it was, could even be, I wouldn't have thought it was from Mogger's side, but literally the day after they lost in the playoffs, there was someone leaked something from someone's agent or someone's lawyer, or someone leaked something. But ultimately there was nothing in it, which I think is good, because certainly the Sunderland fans I've spoken to are more engaged and more kind of happy than they have been, similar to us actually, than they have been in years and years. But I totally agree with you. I think every Sunderland fan would have been more than happy to finish the season with Alex Neil, but obviously he had other ideas. Presumably, I'm getting the idea that he wanted more control over the transfers, and as we're probably going to talk about, if you're the Sunderland manager, you're not having any control over those, because you're going to get these kind of exotic, fun players coming in from everywhere, and most of them are under 21 as well.
But yeah, 20 years at the management gig for Mogger. He's, West Brom, Celtic, Borough, Coventry, Hibs, Blackburn, Sunderland. He's done the rounds there, hasn't he? And I'm really delighted for him, because I think there's a point where managers maybe have a bit of a shelf life, and he's definitely kind of got a second wind at Sunderland, because I think it ended kind of a bit. He'd done well at Blackburn, didn't he? Didn't he get Blackburn on the edge of the playoffs as well? And
I think he did really well at Blackburn, and especially now. And when we talk about Venky's and we talk about Blackburn, we're not talking about Venky's when they first came in and they're releasing chickens on the pitch and Mr. Ronaldinho and, we didn't realise we were going to get relegated and all that stuff. But Mowbray had sort of 2 or 3 different teams there and different styles. And there's a certain young player we're going to talk about now, but built one around Harvey Elliott, and this Ben Brereton Diaz coming in from the left to be a striker. That was all Mowbray. And we all remember the opening day of the Paul Hurst era, and it was Danny Graham and Bradley Dack, and we're going to talk about Bradley Dack again. So I think, because like you say, he's been a manager for 20 years, and I don't want to get into deciding how other people are perceiving other people, because he's old centre-back, northerner, old English bloke. I think people judge him like he's Nigel Pearson when he's not.
Oh, yeah, agreed. Yeah, unfair rap, definitely. A lot of love, as you say, for him. Just finishing the point on narrative and, around the opening game, Ben, you talked about it being on Sky, it being on Sunday afternoon. Our head-to-head overall with Sunderland is pretty good, actually. Well, it's pretty even. 23 Town wins to 24 Sunderland wins and 9 draws. However, here's a quiz question for you. Since Sunderland moved to the Stadium of Light in 1997, our away record there in all competitions, 12 matches. What would you say our Sunderland's win record is? I can tell you that they've got more wins than us, but how many of those 12 have Sunderland won?
Most of them. I remember when they got relegated. Oh, do you know what I remember? Who was our CEO? Milne. What was his first name?
Ian.
I remember a picture of Ian Milne celebrating. Was it a Joe Garner?
Yeah. In their relegation season, the first Sunderland Till I Die season, I think. Coleman in charge. I was there for that one.
Yeah. So that would be 17, 18. Yeah, we must have.
Yeah.
They were, Ellis Short pulled all the parachute payments, didn't he? And
yeah.
So I would say they've won 9. We've drawn 2 and lost 1.
So Sunderland have won 10 out of 12. There's 1 draw and 1 ITFC win. So not a happy home life. Well, for them it is, but not for not a happy, not a happy place for us to go. So it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, lots of fun memories of going to the Stadium of Light. Shall I give you some stats from last season as well? We like to do the stats in the pre-match show, but their match record, or their 6th position, as you mentioned, won 18 of their games, drawn 15, lost 13, a plus 13 goal difference. But lots of interesting stats. 4th for goals scored, 5th for overall possession, 5th for tackles per game, 2nd dribbles per game. Ben, we'll talk about
that's all Pat Roberts and Jack Clark, isn't it?
Exactly right. And fouls won as well, so they're picking up those fouls, those dribblers too. So yeah, definitely some high performing stats there. Interesting that a lot of their points run on the road. Actually, 30 out of the 69 Rich, were at home. 39
can I come in and try and give some kind of explanation? So in September last year, I think Sunderland went to Bristol City, and I think it was virtually the only game they had Ellis Sims and Ross Stewart up front, and they beat the hell out of Bristol City. And everyone's kind of going, "Oh, don't fancy playing against that front two." And they both got injured, and what you've mentioned, they ended up playing like a front 3 of Pritchard, Clark, and Roberts, who are all about 5'7", 5'8", and all just really, really dribbly. So that'll explain all the dribbles and all the away counter-attacky.
I was going to ask you if it was a counter-attacking kind of style. It sounds like it is.
Well, do you remember the goal they scored at the Madstad, or whatever it's called, to select Carlison at Reading? It scored an absolutely beautiful, probably I thought it should have been the goal of the season, but they always go for a foot like a traction engine Alan Partridge goal, don't they? But this is why, Rich, when people look at Sunderland from last season, you can't just go, oh, 6th place team must have been good, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't straightforward. There's loads of caveats to this season last. Sorry, go ahead with the stats.
No, you're right. That was the punchline I was getting to. There's a lot of weird, goals for, slightly more away as well. Points more away from home. So there was a lot of things that kind of jumped out for me. The big thing. Should we talk about the recruitment, because you mentioned it already? We talked about the Luton game maybe being a bit eye-opening for them. The recruitment has kind of tried to remedy that, hasn't it? 2 centre-backs have come in, both over 6 foot, shock, but both been 21 or under. It's a bit of a strange strategy, isn't it? And a lot of money spent for Jensen Silt from PSV, who'll miss the game on Sunday due to an ankle injury. But it's some money. Oh yeah, a big opportunity for Hurst, isn't there?
Ballard and Bath are both fit now, aren't they?
And they've got Triantis, the other centre back,
the Aussie
side as well, the Aussie guy as well. So they've been trying to address some of these deficiencies. But interesting where they're shopping, isn't it?
I think it's great. I really love it. And we're gonna talk about this lad Pierre Ekwa in midfield, who looks really good fun. I think they've got the lad Barr as well, the winger. They seem to be like youngsters coming through, or European. The only thing, and I was on a Sunderland podcast the other day actually, and I said that the only doubt is where's your Sammy Morsey? Where's your 29, 30-year-old guy to link all this? It's probably Dan Neil, who's like 22 or something.
Well, Luke O'Nien just put there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
11 bookings last season for him, by the way.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's Danny Bart, obviously, isn't it? But yeah, I think it's great, and it's not just people get very excited and they incorrectly use the word Moneyball for any kind of transfers that are just vaguely interesting when that's literally not what Moneyball was. But this looks to be fairly joined up, and we think some of them, you've mentioned Jensen Seal already and Ekwa as well. And Clark, okay, I'll give that as a Moneyball one. Someone who'd gone for a big move, flopped and needed rehabilitating. And he's been, same with Patrick Roberts, really. No one would touch him in the end. He'd been on loan everywhere. And I think he had a big move to Man City when he was younger, from Fulham, possibly. Someone will correct me in the chat. But yeah, it's very fun, very innovative, and they don't mind a gamble, and they're already at kind of Coventry post Gyökeres, Brentford post Benrahma being sold levels of signings. So I'd be really excited about the recruitment if I were a Sunderland fan, and as an Ipswich fan, I know we've got our thing with the British guys, but I wouldn't mind a bit of it either.
No, I totally agree. There's definitely opportunities there. You talked about taking punts on players or speculated there. Talk to me about the acquisition of Joe Bellingham from Birmingham, because there's clearly, there's a lot of anticipation and hope on that signing rather than maybe expectation. Brother, obviously a Galactico now. What did you think about that one?
Well, everyone always comes out and says the younger brother, he was the better player, but he never made it or what have you. So I don't know. There's got to be a certain element of gamble, because it was sort of high nearly 2 million,
I think,
quid, wasn't it? So you don't know. I mean, if he's got we're seeing Reece James's sister have the same DNA as Reece James now. So maybe the DNA thing just kind of works, and he will. I don't know. There is a young player who's even more hyped than Joe Bellingham, obviously. And I was going to say about Chris Rigg that I've not heard as much hype for a wonder kid. I know we're going around in a big circle here. I've not heard as much hype since Jude Bellingham as I'm hearing for Chris Rigg, this lad who debuted at 15 in the FA Cup in January. And what I'm hearing is in pre-season, looks absolutely fine. And we all know Tony Mowbray had Harvey Elliott when he was about 12 years old and literally made him the key player in his team. So maybe this is a good time to play Sunderland before this wonder kid actually gets going as well. But if you're spending 2 million quid going back to Joe Bellingham, Rich, he's a starter in a couple of months, if not straight away, isn't he?
It's got to be, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Bradley Dack coming in as well. Moggy getting the old band back together. It does appear to be, obviously, I'm a Diallo key man last season, low knee. There's kind of a little bit of aggregate replacement that you're going to have to do with there. But the striker situation seems to be the most difficult for them. They brought this guy in, Semedo, or Hamir, I think he's called, who from Benfica's B team, scored against Mallorca in a pre-season friendly last week and was signed as kind of a development player, but I think he's going to have to play.
He's going to play, isn't he? Yeah.
They haven't brought it. I think they've got bids in, according to Mogga, for a striker, but Ross Stewart is linked with a move, but he's also injured and out until September with an ankle injury, isn't it? So the question mark for me with Sunderland, we talked about trying to sort out the physicality of the back, but where are the goals going to come from? And Dak, he won't be ready either, will he? He's been injured too. So big question marks in the front end of the pitch, aren't there?
Yeah, it's nothing new from last season, but you're right, because, it's kind of predictable. Either Jack Clark dribbling and setting something up, Diallo, who's obviously not going to be there, cracking him in from here, there and everywhere. But, they did go a long time without without obviously you can be way better with Ross Stewart, who's an excellent striker. But I guess what I'm saying is they probably won't be bothered. They'll probably expect that they can, create chances. What would you rather face? A big hulking Scotsman who, is a 1-in-2 striker in the Championship who's going to play right on you, or, 3 smaller lads coming in. But what I've heard about this Hemir lad is and I never like to hear this, he's big, but he's not a target man.
Oh, okay.
I'm always kind of like, well, why not?
Yeah.
At least play your size, even if it's not totally what you want to do. But I don't know. What would you rather face, hulking big guy or the dribblers?
Well, the dribblers are going to be out wide, aren't they? Let's be honest, in the Sunderland team. It's weird, maybe a bit funny. I thought George Hurst would be a perfect fit for Sunderland. He's the kind of player that a lot of teams will cover, and a lot of teams will be interested to see how he gets on. But he seems to be the fit for me there. I mean, yeah, Stewart, 13 appearances last season before he got injured, 10 goals, 3 assists. So pretty prolific there. And then Joe Gelhardt came in, didn't he, from Leeds on loan, and didn't really 3 goals and 18 appearances. So I'm not sure he's going to be coming back.
I don't know why that didn't work.
I like Gelhardt on paper. Yeah, interesting one. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, as you said, like maybe a good time to play them, but there are still plenty of big names at Sunderland, aren't there? You mentioned Danny Bath, you've got Lyndon Gooch, your Luke O'Nines, your Corey Evans, your Alex Pritchards. There are still plenty of experience in this team, isn't there? And that fearsome Sunderland atmosphere is always a 12th man as well, isn't it? So it's not going to be too...
Pritchard's another one in the rehabilitated Moneyball camp, because he went to Norwich for loads.
Or Huddersfield, was it? To Norwich, 8 million or something, wasn't it? I think it might be.
Oh, no, I don't know which way round it was, but there was a one giant fee that got, maybe it was Norwich to Huddersfield. It was a huge fee. I can't remember exactly, but he looked like he'd been hung out to dry, and proper, really good, creative, dribbly championship player.
Set piece wizard as well. Formation wise, I think it's a 4-2-3-1, but it's this attacking 3 that we need to talk about. Last season it was Clark, Diallo, and Roberts. I mean, that's fearsome, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of goals and assists in that trio. Do you want to talk to us about the wide players, because that's primarily where the threat comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know we're going to get to us, Rich, but the worry is not only the Clark in red and white down that side of the pitch, but the Clark in blue and white who's not going to be down that side of the pitch. And as much as we're all sort of fans of Janoy Donacien and really grateful for what he's done, he's proved me wrong about 50 times in his, I've thought he'd, would have been long gone, and here he is, and he's probably going to start back in the Championship. But yeah, that's going to be a rough afternoon if they get A, a lot of the ball, or B, they get us on the counter attack. There, you feel a little bit sorry for Roberts if he does have to play down the middle, because he's no size, is he? So I think it might be the lad Hemir, maybe like Pritchard or Roberts in a 10, or maybe Roberts out on the right. That sort of thing depends. I don't know whether they'll play a 3 in midfield, like you mentioned, O'Nien and Ekwa and Neil. So I know I've just done 2 separate formations there, but I think they'll go with the big. Was he Portuguese, him here?
I think so. He's from Benfica. That would be my guess.
Yeah. So I think it's work cut out, and we've got to remember about our team is they haven't done a lot of defending for the last 3 months.
No, that's a good point. We haven't been really faced a huge amount of pace either, have we? It was just bombardment and physicalness. So it's going to be an interesting baptism of fire, as we keep saying. Worth knowing, Jack Clark joint top assist in the Championship last season. 43% of Sunderland's attacks went down that right-hand side. That's the second highest percentage for attacking locations. So, yeah, clearly a strategy there to get down that right-hand side. So, as you mentioned, we will miss Harry Clark, certainly. Go on.
No. Sorry, no. I was the wrong side of the pitch. Sorry, my bad.
Some profound moment.
No.
I was going to ask you if there's anything else on Sunderland, because I think in terms of the pre-season programme, just worth mentioning, actually had a 100% record until they drew with
by
Mallorca.
Hartlepool.
And then Hartlepool, I was going to mention this Hartlepool defeat. I mean, a lot of rotation. I don't think a lot of the players that started against Hartlepool will necessarily play. But it reminded me of Charlton away pre-season friendly. Was it 17-18 when we got
6-1, yeah.
Was it 6-1? Were you there for that one? I think you did a live witness, didn't you?
Yeah, it's the very first one. First one we ever did, yeah.
So people reading too much into friendlies, the Hartlepool one is maybe not one to read too much into.
And Rich, can I put to you, this is Brownie in here, Chris Rigg is the biggest name of them all. What do you do when you're starting this season and there's this 16-year-old kid who obviously by the end of the season is going to be in the team? It just seems blindingly obvious. And I remember what Birmingham like with Jude Bellingham, and our mate John was telling me, he's going to make his debut in the Carabao Cup or what have you, and then he's right midfield, and you're kind of like, come on, what are you doing? And then he's central midfield, and you're like, okay, we get it now. But I assume we'll see him off the bench. But what do you do with this wonder kid when it's, we had a similar thing with Kieran Dyer, I guess, where it's like, he's wing back, and it's just inevitable that they come across into the middle of the pitch in the end. But I suspect we'll see him. But how would you play it if you were Sunderland?
Yeah, I think you've got to ease him in a little bit, because the trouble is he's got a reputation now, and you mentioned the likes of Morsey, Luongo. They are not going to be afraid to give him an introduction to the the dark arts or what have you. So you got to be delicate with him a little bit. But if we talked about a little bit of the issues they've got with their squad at the moment. There's no the cliche, if they're good enough, they're old enough, or what have you. Get them in there. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so it's there you go. Mogger will do that as well, isn't he? He's schooled on that way of thinking. So
yeah. So that's what I think. By the time we come to play, I don't know when the second game is. I suspect he'll be in the team.
It feels like there's a lot of players like that with the Sunderland team. And again, maybe, as you say, good time to play him. Any more to add on Sunderland before we start speculating on what Kieran McKenna's going to do?
No, just everything you've said. Good side. Ross Stewart not being there is obviously, we don't want players to be injured, but is good news for us. That's a help. We'll talk about us, but yeah, just a very interesting side and some momentum from last year. But let's move on to us.
Yeah, and if you're a Sunderland fan watching, by the way, do give us some of your insights in the comments in the chat as well. We'll come to those later on. Let's talk about us, because the issue for us is now, we talked about obviously not making the 2 to 3 signings, albeit I think Ashton was, as you mentioned on the pod that we did on Sunday, that's by the end of the window, not this weekend. But we now got a few injury worries, and we don't really know what the story is with Walton. We obviously know the story with Clark suspended, but also an injury out to Broadheads, ? Luongo. So yeah, what's your take on this? What do we do here? Is there maybe a formation change, as you mentioned, because Leif Davis has kind of been experimented in this floating role, hasn't he? So yeah, what do we do? What do we do, Ben? Help.
Well, I suppose, and correct me if I'm wrong, if all of those players are not around, you're going to see Kladky in goal. You're going to see Donasian at right back. I think we discussed that Burns is not likely to get moved back into that spot. You'd hope there'd be enough, maybe with Amari Hutchison, and I know the lads on the pod the other day saying you want to kind of ease him in and bring him off the bench in this one. But in terms of Broadhead's absence, who's going to be the other side to Chaplin? So you just assume like for like swaps, but you can't sit here and deny that severely weakens the team, can you?
All of the January reinforcements, pretty much, isn't it? The ones that got us over the line. But obviously, we're speculating at this point when it's Thursday when we're recording this, and I'm sure Kieran McKenna is possibly keeping his cards close to his chest anyway. But as you mentioned, Broadhead would be a miss. Obviously, he had a loan spell, a pretty decent loan spell at some.
Yeah, they really like him. Yeah.
So that would be a miss. But Harness has had a really great preseason as well, though, hasn't he?
Yeah,
so
true.
You wouldn't be too worried about him. The midfield situation, similar kind of story with Taylor, isn't it? That you'd want to ease him into the team. So, but if Luongo's not there,
I'm on the other page there, Rich.
Okay.
I agree with Joe on that. That if you're 3-year contract. Well, get him in.
That's what we did in January, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my take on Taylor. But I accept that your argument's a perfectly sensible one.
Shall we? I've got nothing else in terms of us. I mean, it's weird to start talking about how does McKenna set us up, Ben? Because you mentioned like League One, it's win the bloody game, isn't it? Score more than the opposition. What kind of, is there going to be a mentality change? It's interesting to see how McKenna gets on at this level, isn't it?
Well, you'd still imagine, and I don't want to be. I know we've been accused of being arrogant Ipswich fans by lots of people this close season, and this is based on the way Sunderland had success and the fact that they don't have a big fella up front to hold the ball. I think we might have more of the possession. So I think it could still be that type of game. I think I agree with what Joe said the other day, Rich, that you accept that you're weaker, but that you've worked damn hard on your pattern of play and you roll with it, I guess. There's obviously the fear that you're upper level and that you're in front of 40,000 and the team you're playing finished, you do the maths, 19 places ahead of where we did last season, and it could come unstuck, but it could certainly go the other way. So I think there's a bit of holding your nerve, and we all know we've had managers in the past here who would take one look at this and lock it up and play for the point, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
and
then get beat
1-0. Yeah, without laying a glove on the opponent. So what would you do?
I don't think McKenna's got another way of playing. It would be interesting. I'm really fascinated to see how we get on, if I'm honest. A lot of people have been on a bit of a roller coaster the last 2 weeks, haven't they? Because a lot of 1 to 24, a lot of pundits, including like a second place prediction this today, I think, on Thursday. A lot of people getting a lot of excitement from these predictions, and all of us talking up our chances.
Rich, we've become the fashionable, trendy,
high potential hipster choice, aren't we?
Which is not the greatest, is it? Because a lot of times with hipster behaviour, and I'm going back to my times in bands and in Camden and East London and whatnot, there's not actually a lot of thought goes into that. It's just, I want to appear to be, progressive or whatever. And sometimes, progressive thought is, incredibly clever and well thought out. But sometimes it's just people trying their absolute hardest. And I do think there's a certain amount of that, isn't there?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people have kind of read into that we're going to be favourites, maybe, and then you've got the downer for injuries and the transfer business. So I kind of, it's weird to say it, Ben, I take a point. Do you know what I mean? It's back to the Championship and back to taking that away point. But to be honest, you want to start the season relatively positively. And, narrative wise, we said a ground where we've got a crap record, new division for us, some injury doubts, perhaps, an away point at Sunderland is nothing to be sniffed at, is it? So anyway,
I think as well, Rich, you've got to do this in blocks as well, and forget that Leeds game for the minute. If you're saying Sunderland away, Stoke home, QPR away, and you start it with a point, and there's possibly a 3, hopefully coming from one of those two, then that point looks all right in context with what might happen down the line. So,
yeah.
But I suspect, and we can ask the chat, if we were sat here and Walton was fit and Broadhead was fit and Clark wasn't suspended,
it's a great point.
We'd be like, come on then.
Yeah, let's
come on,
have
Championship. Let's see how good you are, and it just knocks your confidence a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, should we do that? Should we? Because we're going to go and do predictions in a bit. Shall I do some plugs and we'll get people's views in on how we'll line up? And any questions, stick a Q. The best question tonight, and if this is an incentive, then fantastic. Best question will give someone season access to Telegram. New
Unbelievable.
Season, new podcast, super generous. You get Telegram. No. One good question gets Telegram. We'll pick it at random, or we'll pick it on merit, won't we? So we'll do that. But let me do some plugs while Ben's going through the comments here. We are brought to you again in partnership with the Greyhound, obviously with next week in mind, the best place to go pre-match. So go and support the Greyhound, and you'll see some of the Blue Monday team there, I'm sure. But key news for us, we will be back on Sunday, Flagship Show straight after the final whistle on Sunday. So not the usual 8 o'clock start time. We'll come in there, and as Ben mentioned on last week's pod, we will be the replacement pundits for Sky. So come and join us in the chat after our 1-1 draw at Sunderland for episode 700, Ben. Can you imagine?
Absurd.
700.
Absurd.
So do join us then. We've also mentioned Mikey's combined 11 video. To answer Mullet's question, what Ben and I think is good is good.
Yeah, it's not even a benign dictatorship. It's just a dictatorship.
It's a fix. It's a fix, Mullet.
No. There's the answer. Hang on.
Yeah.
Not posed by Mullet. Perfect.
Rodders has got it. Rodders in one.
There you go.
Rodders wins. No, we'll try and do a question. But yeah, Mikey's combined 11 video, definitely worth a watch as well. Go and check that out as well. And if you've got this far as well, do give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. We are here every single week giving the inside track on Ipswich Town's opponents. We will also be here after the fact as well, talking about the game as well. So get involved in lots of other random stuff too. If you want to continue the debate throughout the week, then our Telegram group, as we mentioned as well, our messaging group, really great stuff there. The transfer group is being shut down and reappropriated back to the matchday chat, which will be great on Sunday as well. So do come and join us there. 2 weeks for free and then a subscription after that. And we've got a promo on our merch as well at some point next week. Everything you need. Blue Monday, itfc.co.uk. And I think that's very thorough, Ben. I don't think I've got anything else. I'll hand back to you.
Someone's just posted in there. This is from the club Twitter. Probably worth talking about. Luke Chambers has just retired. Someone will give me the number in the chat. 800
He was about 30
possibly?
and about 39 appearances off 1,000 EFL appearances as well.
So the first thing I would say is congratulations to Luke Chambers. I understand the big split on the kind of frustration at the era that he played in, and you can't do anything about the era that you're either born in or the team that you're playing in. And yes, we understand he may not have got into some of our greater teams from history, but he gave everything for the club, didn't he? And 800 appearances is a hell of a run for Chambers. So
sorry, 800 appearances. I said 1,000, didn't I? Yeah, 709 according to Wikipedia. 791 career appearances and 376 of those at ITFC. And you look at, I totally agree with you, Ben. I was one of those people who was advocating for Chambers to win Player of the Season in the relegation season, and I know that a lot of people kind of got triggered by that, but it's so hard setting the standing when you know that everything around you has fallen apart. No, managerial changes, utterly dysfunctional, but year after year, 100% effort, 44 appearances in his first season, 46, 45, 45, 46, 37, 43, 31, 39, Chambers ever present, almost ever present.
And Rich, it's not like he didn't know his place in the football hierarchy.
Yeah.
I always remember under Paul Hurst, we were at Birmingham and we went 2-0 up before half time. John Nolan scored, I think Pennington scored, and John Nolan scored a really good goal. It's a bit muggy, it's a bit smash and grabby. And we ended up drawing 2-2. And I just remember Chambers coming over to the away supporters at the end. He was like, I don't know what to do. I genuinely don't know what to do here. They've taken Murphy away from me and Waghorn away from me and McGoldrick and Selena and, all of that good stuff. And I think it's been debated. Rich, what can't be debated? We've been talking about what a good question is. I can give you some examples of some really bad questions here.
If they're so bad they're good, then that might...
So this one's awful. Right, where are Joe and Craig? They're great. So that's... Craig F. So that is an example of a terrible question.
I'll bite my tongue on that one.
This one is equally as bad from Skip. When are the A team back? So that's another example of a bad question, let's just say. Should we take some of these then, Rich?
Yeah,
can I just dive on this? Because I am friends with Ryan and Justin from the Second Tier podcast. Did you see the Second Tier pod predicted Ipswich to finish second? really good friends with those guys. They are aware of certain marketing strategies with their content and creating conversation. Let's just say so. They know their football, but yeah.
I mean, it's
Pinch of salt, maybe.
Not a stupidly controversial choice, but I can understand a bit of a strategy around that one.
Yeah. Right, you can take this one then. Rodders. Will we have our socks blown off by a statement signing before deadline day?
Or a marquee signing? I wouldn't be surprised if something happens out of the blue. I quite like Mark Ashton's style with these kind of surprise signings, unlike George Hurst, where we knew for 2 days it was going to happen because we were stalking him.
God.
Yeah, I'm changing my mind actually. I don't think there'll be anything before Sunday, and I say that to tempt fate. So
I think the question said deadline day though, Rich.
Did it say deadline day?
I think so. Yeah. So okay. As in September 1st.
I think there'll be 2 or 3, and I think there'll be a couple more loan signings possibly as well, because I think that might be where we go and we end up having to go.
I agree with you. I think by statement signing, this person probably means 2.5-3 million quid, biggest signing in years, basically. And I think we'll still collect the 1.5.
I agree with that. And maybe a Premier League loanee with a chunky loan fee, kind of what I'm expecting.
Richard, will Burgess be our rock at the back this season?
I mean, unsung hero last season. I'd love to see Burgess succeed at Championship level, partly because it means we haven't got to go and get another left. Well, we do need a backup left centre back, don't we? But I love Burgess to do that, and he's got pedigree, isn't he? He came through at Fulham, made his debut at Championship level, so why not? I love Burgess, so good on him. I hope he has a really good strong start to the season.
Neil, what sort of team do we see put out against Bristol Rovers Wednesday? What with injuries, etc.?
It's not our priority tournament, is it? And our second string should beat Joey Barton's Bristol Rovers, shouldn't it? I don't know. Got flashbacks to last season and Valentine's Day. I think it'll be a massive rotation, Slicker in goal, that kind of stuff.
Have Ben or Rich ever been the hipster choice? I think we can all answer that in one word.
Look at the glasses. He's got a beard. Look at him.
My beard's like proper grey now. It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, stupid.
Oh Christ, who has the best pod room? Mine gets accused. Richard's got the best pod room, and we'll move on. I will say, and I know this is not the thing of the pod. I had a smart meter installed today, and I realised how much electricity this pod room uses now because
I've got so much light as well. Yeah,
it's ridiculous, isn't it? Questions. Here we go, Norman. Richard, could we see Chaplin on the left, Taylor at number 10, double pivot of Morsey and Evans on Sunday? Regardless of the actual personnel he's put in there, sort of this idea that if you pop Taylor in as a number 10, that he can drop back and make it a midfield 3. I don't want to put words into his mouth there, but doesn't sound like the worst idea in the world.
I just thought I saw. I mean, it's drawing conclusions for friendlies. I was at the Maidenhead game where Taylor made his first appearance, and he didn't really make a massive contribution on that. I know it's really early days. I mean, yeah, Chaplin on the left is probably the bit that is the question mark for me. I'd be surprised if Evans plays as well, but you never say never. And McKenna's probably got something up his sleeve, maybe, and yeah, not a bad shout.
He's had a while to think about it, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, Jason makes a fair point. A lot of these predictions, they're the data-led ones, aren't they? And we've got to remember, our data was off the charts good.
Didn't lose a game, 15
ridiculous,
games.
But all the underlying stuff was mental as well. But that was then, and this is now. And I think we can all agree it won't be. Our data for those last 15 games would have been better than Burnley's in their 10-game winning streak in the Championship last season. So that's it. Kind of doesn't add up. Lots of nice comments about Luke Chambers. Anna, is this a good question? It's a terrible question. And by the way, Anna is a Bristol City fan. And he and I have made a pact. We're not speaking in the week of the Mark Ashton derby. I'm probably not going to go on Twitter here. When is Ben going to get match of the day slate? So that's very, very, very kind.
Yeah.
I think the 12th of never, that one, isn't it?
Well, talk to us, Ben, because you made an announcement on your.
Yeah.
Good stuff, haven't you? A good announcement today.
Yeah. So on Thursdays now, you've got Rich and Seb at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be on my channel with Sam Parkin from 7 till 8.
Sam Parkin,
the Sam Parkin of who did appear on the pod last year.
Great interview with us, yeah.
Good interview that, wasn't it? But yeah. So if you wanted to lengthen this out, and Rich is already pitching Thursdays as Watch Blue Monday and then Life's a Pitch.
Yeah. You're speaking to Chambers next. What a bloody exclusive for them,
they've got Chambers have that. Oh, yeah. Christ. No one's going to be watching me and Parkin next week.
I hope they knew in advance that he was retiring, because if the club have just ruined it, like, we didn't ask him, damn it. But yeah, there's 3 hours of content there. So Ben, we need to get I'll do a promo advert or something.
Yeah.
So what's it going to be? What you and Sam?
It's called a championship check-in, and we'll do it as a podcast as well. But this is Blue Monday time, and you can find out about it on my
Ben's channel is excellent. Go and give him a follow, and also go and watch Twitter. The watch along tomorrow night as well. Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah,
Southampton. That'll be good.
Yeah, that'll tell you what, that'll give us a good idea of what a League One club who scored 90 plus points, how they're going to go against a Year One parachute team. I don't believe it. Mullet's actually asked a sensible question. Yeah. Forgive me as I come back in shock here. Will there be a live pod this season, Richard?
Almost certainly. Yes, watch this space. Okay.
Sam, ITFC dark horse this season. Ladapo or maybe back? I like that question actually.
Yeah.
Out of those two, I'd think Ladapo was the more likely
I'd love Freddie to
dark
score.
Horse. Yeah.
I've kind of got this. There's a group of players that you want to like, or you want to have success. Burgess is one, Harness is the other. Freddie Ladapo is a great shout there from Sam. Sam's winning so far.
Dominique, with the increase of transfer fees around the top of the table in the Premier League, do you think the owners will put a larger amount into transfers if we finish mid-table in Champs next season? Are you wanting me to rant on about money?
Kieran Maguire. I mean, FFP is alarm bells are ringing for me.
No, don't. Yeah. So, no, probably is the answer. It's now boring as it seems. It's now about building stars and building value on the balance sheet. And I'm going to say this repeatedly over this season, and prepping somebody to sell on. And it's going to be a player who we love.
Which is what Sunderland are doing, that, aren't they? With their recruitment.
Yeah, exactly. And look at Coventry's transfer window. Have they done Hadji right yet? Has that gone through?
Because there's a few 3.5 million deals that went through this.
Yeah, well, that's going to be like 7 million. And that's where you've got, okay, is there someone in our squad who's going to go for 20 million euros at the end of the season? No, probably not, because that's always a striker, isn't it? Unless you've got Chris Riggs. Unless you've got
18, 19-year-old.
An 18-year-old central midfielder who's just bossing games.
Super high potential, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, to Dominique's question, I do think the owners will put a larger amount in, but his comparison there is to the transfer fees around the top of the table. And I mean, look at it. 10 million Harry Winks, 7 million Connor Cody, Shea Charles for 10 million, who's played 21 minutes of senior football, Ethan Ampadu, 7 million going up to 10. That's a fair bit of trading away for us. And we don't have the cojones to do a faux son, and frankly, who wants to do that? It's just blow through the rules and gamble everything, and look at Sheffield Wednesday, blah blah blah. Anyway, I don't want to be disillusioned. Is it true? Oh dear, I'm going to read that one. Louis, Kiefer Moore back. I don't think that's happening, is it?
No, I wouldn't want it to either. I'm still scarred by that whole experience. Yeah, leave it at Bournemouth.
Michael, Ball to play in the midfield so he can drop to make a back 3-5. I understand the sense, but haven't we got to a point now where we've got a nice pattern of play where maybe we would rather lose the game than try and draw it doing that? No offense to Michael's suggestion, Rich.
Well, I think Ball could be a good option in centre mid alongside Morsey if we need him as well. So I wouldn't get too clever, but Ball is the fourth player in my quadrology of, is that a word? Is that a word? I'm making it up.
I don't know. I'm having it.
Of players that I want to do well, who I like. Yeah.
Where do you think Baggett will feature this season, AD? I'm in the top 10 of league. Oh, Stevenage is the link now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be an eye-opener, wouldn't it? I don't think that might do him a load of good. Maybe 6 months with Steve Evans.
Hang out with Steve Evans, yeah.
I'm going to Stevenage on Tuesday night, actually, to see him play Watford. So, yeah. Charlie, this is ridiculous. Richard's going to be the next James Bond.
No, unless James Bond likes to sit behind a desk all day, editing podcasts.
Yeah, right. Very good, Davis, for 10 to 15 million next.
Yeah, that does feel likely, doesn't it?
He's got to not... He can't do the numbers he did last season, but a good step up, and he starts to become the one I always compare it to. Is remember Lloyd Kelly? He was Bristol City, wasn't he? And I think he had one season, and he was up for 10, 12 million or whatever it was when he went to Bournemouth. So. And a serious question: did you expect a higher spend in the Championship, going off the fact that you spend the League One was considered high? I probably did expect them to have spent more by this point. So I think that's actually a yes. I don't know about you, Rich.
I think there was a deliberate strategy to spend in League One, where we haven't got the FFP constraints, so that we didn't need to spend as much in the Championship. But I was expecting maybe 2 or 3 signings around the 3-4 million mark rather than.
Yeah, I never thought we'd get up that high in the first window. I don't think, but I could. That could be me being
just one. Yeah, maybe one like the marquee signing, the statement signings we keep talking about. But
it's just weird though, Richard. Since we signed Matteo Sereni for £5 million, the rest of footballers gone on, and it's very like you speak to Leicester fans, and they find it odd that you think signing a 30-year-old defender for £7.5 million is mind-blowing, but it's completely normal. And this has just passed us by, hasn't it, as a football club for the last 10, 15 million, transfers, 10, 15 years, I'm mixing my metaphors then. But yeah, I'd love to get into that space, but it needs to be done responsibly, and it needs to be done on the back of good sales, bringing money in, and that you're not doing
investing. Should we do some predictions before I forget? And
whose was the best question? Was it Sam's?
I think Sam's question was wins.
Where was it? Not Dominique's one there. Sam's.
What are you saying?
Go with Sam. Yeah, sorry, Sam? Dominique.
We can give Dominique half a season. How about that? If you email bluemondayitfc@gmail.com, Sam and Dominique, you might need to prove your identities. We'll sort you out something. Dominique, we might sort you out some merch, perhaps. But thank you, everyone, for asking your questions. Get your predictions in right now, because we're going to have a look at ours. I won't bother with the music.
No, I want to hear the music.
Okay, well, it's just a little bit of editors. Much love to editors for continuing to allow us to use their song as well.
Did I see Ed had contributed to the ladies'
involved in the Friends of Blue Monday as well?
What a man!
So we love Ed, we love editors,
and obviously all the people that contribute to that, not just the rock stars.
Your names will come up at the end as well, so keep a lookout for that. But yeah, I think it's a little bit long, but anyway, let's go for it.
I liked it.
The burst with there's brass in it. It's quality. Let me put up on the screen. You get your Ipswich Sunderland predictions. Anything else you want to predict in the Championship this week? We will continue this. Do check back in next week, because Seb will be wearing a T-shirt to denote his failure to beat me last season. Here we go, Ben. Should we talk through some of these? I mean, the first one, top of the list, your watch along tomorrow. We're all predicting Southampton. There's no real surprises there, is there?
No, I think there'll be some kind of feel good at Hillsborough in terms of, them being back up a league. But you'd think Che Adams and Alcaraz and Adam Armstrong coming off the bench, they'll just have too much for them, won't they?
It feels like it as well. Not a huge amount of excitement at Blackburn. We're predicting Anniersby be pretty. Bristol City, we're all predicting to beat Preston. Borough Millwall's an early kind of playoff-y kind of game there, all home advantage. Plymouth Huddersfield, all predicting home win for Plymouth. You've gone for a 2-goal margin there against Neil Warnock, against his old club, isn't it?
So you can imagine Plymouth taking the lead in like the 5th minute or something, and and Huddersfield pushing, then Plymouth going 2-0 up, then Warnock throwing 8 strikers on, Huddersfield scoring, and Plymouth nicking one to win it 3-1. I just think it'll be. I think the mood will take Plymouth home in that one. I think
home advantage is going to be huge for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Schumacher. We talk about Mogger getting the old band back together. You've got Azaz, Mumba, and Whittaker back at Plymouth as well. Do you feel any stronger about their chances of,
I predicted that. It's difficult because because their fans kind of behaved in a certain way at the end of last season. They're a very likable story, and the manager is extremely likable. But I really, really want to like them, and hopefully we can grow to like them during the season. I do want them to do well, even though there was a slightly strange sort of vibe,
wasn't there?
Yeah, it's a bit odd at the end of last season, wasn't it? But
Leicester Coventry, you're there on Sunday, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
You're going for a draw. Do you had some working for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't think Leicester will be having it yet. And Mark Robbins he's at the peak of his managerial powers at the moment, and he'll have something up his sleeve, and they'll probably snatch an equaliser in that or something.
And finally, Leeds Cardiff, we're all going for feels like a home banker there. That might be an Acker ruiner, mightn't it? We're all going for a hat trick of 1-1 draws in there. Exciting. Thank you to Ed, who's predicted from the Telegram group. 1-1, no surprises though, Ben. Feels like inevitability.
So, do you remember in League One when Sunderland had 21 draws in the space of about 40 games or something, didn't they? So it was 1-1 was always the safe one. But look, being sensible about this, Rich, especially if George Hurst scores to get that monkey off his back in terms of never having scored a goal in the Championship, I think we'd all be really, really pleased to get Clark back and maybe Broadhead back. And I think, given Stoke have signed so many players, and Portman Road's going to be full, and hopefully it's going to be sunny. If we took a point and then went into the Stoke game, maybe with a couple of players back, that feel good. If we had 4 points from the first 2 games, would be. I'll probably be totally wrong. I just feel that there's more chance of beating Stoke next week at Portman Road than there is of beating Sunderland. But I'd love to see it.
So I agree with that logic. And worth noting, we were back this time next week to talk all about Stoke as well. So do join us for that. Any predictions in the chat that we want to throw up on the screen? Anyone gone for a 4-2 or a 5-0?
What have we got here?
There's a lot of consensus. Oh, Charlie.
3-0 win for the Town. I'll take that. 2-1 Town, 2-2, 1-1, 3-1, but not sure we'll get the 3. 2-1 defeat, a few 1-1s there, 2-0 defeat. We're fairly mixed, actually, aren't we? 2-2, 2-1 Sunderland, 1-1, 1-0 Town win, 2-2. I mean, the good news is it doesn't feel like we're grossly overconfident. It feels...
No. I think overall, it's netting off, isn't it? And
yeah. So again, though, I suspect had Broadhead, Clark, Walton, all the boys been fit and not suspended, I think there'd be a few people expecting us to go there and lay down a bit of a marker there. So it's a shame. It's a shame we can't do that. But as I said on that Sunderland podcast the other day, Rich, we cannot moan as Ipswich fans right now. If there's any time we should be chuffed after the last 3 months, it's now. Look, if we lose on, when did we last lose?
Blind. I can't remember.
I'd quickly tell us in the chat. It must be early February or late.
It was a crap. Was it Oxford? No. Oxford.
No, Oxford was December, wasn't it?
No, there was an Oxford away game in turn of the year, wasn't there, in January?
The foggy one.
Yeah, the foggy one. That was the last time we lost, wasn't it?
Oxford says. When was that? January.
January, wasn't it? There you go.
We lost for 7 months.
What are you complaining about, folks? Come on.
Yeah, it's going to feel weird. Guys, Ipswich are going to lose a game at some point. It's going to happen. It's going to feel weird, isn't it? Yeah.
There's a positive. We can't end on that, Ben. We need 2 positives to undo that negative. Well, firstly, thank you everyone for joining us in the chat and getting involved. Do give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Do join us again on Sunday for the Flagship Show. We'll talk about Ipswich's 1-1 draw, as I mentioned. Ben in the cup. Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
There's positivity. Result doesn't matter. We're in the bloody championship. Yeah.
We'll take that. Yeah, and enjoy it, guys. Enjoy yourselves. Football is back. We're back here on the Blue Monday podcast. Ben, thank you for your expertise.
What time are we on Sunday night, Rich?
Straight after the game. It'll be about like 7:30.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll do that. Are you going to press the buttons or shall I? They've got the host faced off here, haven't we?
I'm kind of.
You're
I've
chilling
reclined
out.
into my seat now. I'm showing
Hipster,
my
chilled out entertainer, aren't you? Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you all soon. And enjoy your weekends. And thank you to the Greyhound. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Come on, Ipswich.
Here's more editors.